Now we have our adjustment layers. Now let me go ahead and open another new file. Let me come. I downloaded a beautiful file. Let's say I come to this image and I right click on it and I say open with, and open with Photoshop. Now that is another way to open images, right? It clicks on, you right click on the image and open with Photoshop. It brings it to a separate panel, right, or workspace. It brings to a separate one. Now let's talk about adjustment layers for colors. Now by default, Photoshop has a lot of adjustment layer. We see them here. We have brightness and contrast, curve, levels, curves, exposure, vibrance, hue, saturation, color balance, black and white, photo filter, and a whole lot of other different colors. Now, but there are some basic colors or some basic adjustments that Photoshop helps you to do. Now, I'll go ahead and duplicate this layer. Okay, before I do that, let me show you the type of adjustments we can make. We come to image. When we come to image, we see adjustments here, and we see all the same adjustment types listed here that we have here. But also we can see we have auto tune, auto contrast, and auto color. I'll be telling you about these three very soon now. So if I go ahead and rename this, let us try and rename it to auto tone, sorry, and I have an auto tone layer, and I want to see what the auto tone do. I can come to this image, click on auto tone. Do we see the changes now? It has automatically toned this image to the default auto tone setting of Photoshop, and we can click on this button to shut it off to compare what we have. I like this auto tone. It looks more sharper. This looks a little bit blur, but the auto tone looks sharper. So we have an auto tone image already. Let's turn it off. Let's go back to our background and duplicate this one and name it auto contrast to see what the auto contrast do, and go to the image and click on auto contrast. You see it, we can compare the auto contrast with the background. Now notice we're supposed to notice something is that whatever image or layer stays on top is the one that displays out first. So if we open the eye for auto tone is the first one, and that is what is going to cover up all the other images. If I turn off auto contrast, it's still the same thing, it doesn't change. If I turn off background image, it doesn't change. While because this image is the one on top and is the one with the highest, or is the one with the topmost open feature, so it's going to display first. So in order to make our comparison, we can click on auto contrast open and compare between auto tone and auto contrast to see the difference. Now the last one we have is auto color. We can choose and we can come and duplicate the layers. I'll call it auto color. Have it as auto color. We turn off this other two. I will come to auto color and select the image, click on auto color. It also changes it. It looks a little bit like auto tone, but can you see the difference as you switch between them? You see the difference. So when you have an image, you basically can choose to do any of these three things to know what you want to do to it. Let me go back to sample and choose an image and select what we want to do. So come to pictures. I hope I have pictures. Okay, let's say I pick a picture of me and I say open with Photoshop, and you open. I can choose to duplicate this image. Let's just make it background copy. Duplicate again. Okay, let me say tone so that we know what we are doing to it. Auto tone, auto contrast, and auto color. So you can see difference. So let us go for the auto tone. Click on the image and auto tone it. Do we notice it's a bit brighter? Let's keep it that way. Let's come to the next one. That's auto color. Auto color. Let's also see it almost has the same effect. And come to auto contrast. Not much of a significance. So we can turn it on and see the difference. Let's turn it off and see the difference between the original and this. You see that this is a bit brighter. So so those three adjustments can be done to an image to adjust the image. Now we also have another feature. Well, let's come down to this place. Let me turn off all other effects so that this one is the only one. So let's say since they are the auto tone, let's delete. Let's go ahead and delete. You can press down your shift. If you are holding an element in front, you can press down your shift and come to the last one you want to delete. It's going to highlight all and you delete. Or alternatively, you can choose to press it down. Press your control and press them one by one to delete. You can also remove anyone from the highlight and delete anyone you want to delete. And note that a locked layer will not delete. If you click on delete, it will not delete. If you click on delete for this background, it will not delete. Oh, it did. Okay, because the layer there are other layers. If it's the last layer, like if we delete this other layer and the last layer and click on delete, it's not going to go because the layer in Photoshop, like I said, cannot be empty. So since we have it like this, now let's go ahead to the first adjustment color we have here. We have brightness and contrast. If you click on it, it brings it here, gives us a level where we can either choose between brightness or contrast. If we can choose to say we increase the brightness, see what that does. We can choose to increase the contrast, see what that does. Okay, let me just explain this now. Now, brightness is the amount of light that comes into an image, right? So you can choose it to be dark or make it very bright, okay, or leave it at default. While contrast is the intensity or the thickness of the light on the image itself. There are some curves in the images. It helps to darken or brighten some special curves or effects of the image. So we also have the auto button here, which is auto, which can help to automatically change and choose automatically correct brightness and contrast of the image, which means it can auto, and will I call it an auto brightness or auto contrast of the image depending on the image type we have. And now we see that is that. I can go ahead and lock this layer or highlight this layer to see the difference. If I don't want, I can say okay, let me come to another effect. Let's say the levels. I click on the levels. Now, what does the level do? The level shows this blackness, this black level shows the shadow, the thickest blackness of the image, while this white one shows the brightest side of the image. The best way to adjust this is to just drag the darkness or drag the dark to where we can see this chart. We can see some pyramids, or we can see the highest point. The best way to do is to drag the black to the first place the highest point starts from, and drag the white to the first place this starts from. What does that do? That helps to also increase the brightness or lightness of the image depending on how we want it to be. Or we can just come and click on auto to allow it to add its own effect to it. But I think we want to adjust it ourselves. We can choose to say, okay, we want it to be a very bright shining image with a very strong dark field to make it look like a 1920 film movie, or we can just whatever we want it to be. Now, one thing about graphics is there is no perfect way to design a graphics, especially when it comes to colors, contrast, and all that. There is no perfect way. There is no acceptable way. All that it is to be is it should be able to appeal to the consumer. So I can choose to design this with this kind of bright logo now, or bright color, I mean. Now, what the question we have to look out for is, will it be presentable to the audience? Won't it be too shouty or too messy? That is what we need to discover. So click on the auto, let it auto adjust, we block it, and let's say we come to the curve. Now, what is a curve? Curve also shows us the highest point and the lowest point in the graphics. So we can choose to click on the point. I prefer to choose mine from the middle and drag up to color to increase the brightness, or drag down to reduce the darkness. So either way, we can choose what we want, or we can just come on auto and it upload to auto adjust. That is that. We come to the next one, exposure. Exposure also has to do with how much light comes into an image, right? And how much darkness can be in the image. This offset has to do with the background of the image, right? See, it's changing mostly just the background. The background is getting darker, and the offset. So gamma correction, they are all adjustments to adjust the line. So like I said, no predefined way, is all how you want it to be. Okay, so vibrance also, we can come to vibrance, increase the vibrance. You see, vibrance doesn't do much. It is not noticeable, right? It has to do with thickening the color that is most visible in the picture. Now, the most visible color here is blue. So if we do it, you see it's only affecting the blue. It's mostly not affecting the image, but it's the blue that is visible. It's touching the face a little bit, but the blue is more visible. If we reduce it, the blue is also mostly affected greatly. Saturation has to do with the amount of redness of an image. So if you click it, it's focused more on the red. So it focuses more on the red, or the RGB, the red in every color combination. So we have that. We can also click on hue on saturation to increase the hue. The hue has to do with changing the color in contrast to each other. So we can choose to do that. We can choose to have an image like this and make it look like the original color is a green color, and everybody wondering, oh, it's a green shirt, and I'm like, no, it's a blue shirt, and we all go, we see the different colors has changed, and I'm now putting on an orange cloth. Okay, so the hue helps to contrast the color rapidly without really making much damage to the image. We have saturation. Like I said, saturation is more about the redness. Then we have the lightness or darkness of the image. If you want to have like a dark fade away, don't want anybody to see what is there, don't want to delete the image, you just want it to fade into the darkness of the shadow. That is what levels can do. Or hue and saturation, sorry. Then we have color balance, which just helps us to see how much red we can add, or how much green we can add, or how much yellow we can add to just adjust the color. Okay, then we have black and white. Black and white automatically changes the color to black and white of the image. It's just a way to just have a grayscale of your image. So we have black and white. We have photo filter. You can put photo filter. You will notice it, or putting the photo filter, it helps to adjust this image color very well to make it a little bit more bluish. Or we can choose to work on the intensity of the photo filter. You can choose to change the type if you want it to be an underwater color. that is to make it look aqua. Okay, or we can choose to make it deep yellow. We want it to be a bit yellowy. We can choose to make it cooling filter, a cool blue, right? Or we can choose to enhance or increase. So all is at user's discretion, right? When we go into retouching, we're telling you how to choose and select the best thing to use for your image, and we can explore other options to see which one we best use. So that's all about the adjustment layers. We can choose to play around with it, take an image and adjust it to suit yourself. So I think that is going to be the first assignment I'm going to be giving you. Now I want you to take a picture of your choice, open it up in your Photoshop and add some adjustment layers to it and save.